Begone, orange man of the bad origin. Hello, pasty ghoul of the old origin. Now join me, fellow Americans, as we all unite under a unified message and accept Biden as our president. Say it with me. Orange man bad. Orange man bad. Alright, I think YouTube's gone, so let's get straight into the facts here. I forgot to add earlier, don't forget to smash the subscribe button, leave a like, a comment, maybe even share it with some friends, and check out my Patreon at patreon.com/Admiral Addy. Now back to the video. So you might have heard lately that there is a lot of talk about secession, seceding from the Union, and there's a lot to it. It's a very difficult topic to sort of understand and comprehend because you'd think, yeah, I want to get the hell out of here. I'm tired of it. And I mean, trust me, I'm getting there too. But with two sides that are so different, they're divided by so much now. Originally, when the Founding Fathers created America, they created the Union, they had at least one thing in common, that America was the best place to be. They loved America because it was freedom. It was freedom for everyone. However, they may not have agreed on the size of government. They may not have agreed on the amount of taxes one should pay, but at least they had that common goal of making America the greatest place that it could be. However, as we see now, that is not the case. You have one side burning the flag down, and the other side waving it as strong as possible, smacking people in the face with it, because they love the country. So how do you merge these two separate entities into one that at least has some fundamental agreement? And honestly, that is just a question for you guys, because I have no idea how it could be possible. The amount of conflict in the streets now, the amount of riots and different protests, people are protesting anything now. You literally have people out in the streets protesting the randomest stuff. Someone stubbed their toe on their desk or something, and they're out there protesting their desk. That's just stuff that you find happening in America now, so it's kind of like, what do you do with that? Where do you go from there, and how do you unify these two groups? And I don't see, honestly, a possibility of it. You have 75+ million people who accept Trump as their president, and the other 80 million that accept Biden as their president. Big quotations there, double quotations. So I'm not even sure what could be the result of this. As we've seen, people think that seceding from the Union will be sort of similar to like the old Civil War. People will just be shooting each other with muskets and stabbing them with bayonets. But that's not really what would happen in the current age. I think stuff like Chaz, that great success, you'll have stuff like that popping up from both sides where they just say, hey, you can't come in here, buddy. This is our territory. We don't follow those rules around here, city slicker. Stuff like that. And I mean, what do you do at that point? If Biden were to become president, how would he be able to stop people from doing that? You can't really send in the feds. I don't think anyone would approve of that. And I mean, that's just an unnecessary risk. So I really do believe that there will be many people who won't even accept it. They will just let things be. They'll just do their own thing. And I mean, there's even talks from, I think it was Texas saying, I mean, obviously Texas is the one talking about seceding, but if states stop paying taxes to the federal government, that's pretty much the main thing that keeps everyone together as a union. They all pull their money together and the taxes pay for the government. But if people don't accept the government and they stop paying their taxes, what can you do about that? That's essentially how civil war starts. So I'll read you this excerpt here, this quote from the GOP chair of Texas. As we can see, it says, Texas GOP chair floats secession for law-abiding states after Supreme Court defeat. And this is his actual quote. The Supreme Court, in tossing the Texas lawsuit that is joined by 17 states and 106 U.S. congressmen, has decreed that a state can take unconstitutional actions and violate its own election law, resulting in damaging effects on other states that abide by the law. While the guilty state suffers no consequences, this decision establishes a precedent that says states can violate the U.S. Constitution and not be held accountable, and that is sort of a very hefty statement to make. And there is some factual evidence behind that. I mean, obviously, Georgia, all of these places changed their election laws. Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia all changed them drastically, not going through the legislature, skipping right over it. So what is the price for doing that? How can you correct that wrong? I don't know of a way that it could be corrected at this point. Trump's obviously trying his best to hold them accountable, but no one will hear it. Literally, no one will hear out his cases. They just dismiss them on different grounds. You know, the standing, how early they presented the case. They just get tossed out for menial things and not based on the merit, which I don't even get that. How are you going to not judge something based on the merit? You're just going to decree it as, oh, get it away from me. I don't even want to see it. If I don't see it, it never happened. It's just so crazy to me, and I'm sure that that's how many others who support Trump feel. And that's what drives the divide even greater, because how can you unify around a message where one side's telling you, hey, America sucks and everyone's a Nazi, fascist, racist Trumplet, and the other side's just essentially calling the other side the same thing, and there's no way to work around that. There's no way to unite the two, because they both think that the other side's the worst person in the entire world. So how do you sort of befriend the worst person in the entire world? There's no way to connect the two. And people think that secession is something that would be good. You know, you can just secede and we'll all go our separate ways. You know, it's like a divorce, a little breakup. No point staying together for the kids at this point. You know, let's just move our separate ways. But the reality is that would definitely stump our ability to still be the world's leading superpower. If you have two separate entities side by side now, say if we were going to be invaded, how would we defend that? How would we fend off invaders from taking over our territory? We'd have one president of one collective group calling the other one, hey, we're getting invaded from the West Wing. What? Can we get some backup? What's that? I couldn't hear you. You're breaking up. Click. And that's just how I imagine it would go. How do you defend that? If both sides hate each other so much, there's no coming together to stop a foreign entity. Maybe that's what China wants. Just another conspiracy theory here. Sorry, I had to throw that in there. Let's read this other quote here real quick, though, and then I'll show you some pretty interesting things as well. It says, this decision will have far-reaching ramifications for the future of our constitutional republic. Perhaps law-abiding states should bond together and form a union of states that will abide by the Constitution. And that does sound like such a joy, like something that people could rally behind. However, like I said, there are so many different facets to that argument, to that statement, that make it so much more complicated than that. Where do you draw the lines for the different places that people can live? And how do you unify together as one overall entity while still having two separate individuals in power, as I'd assume that it would be? It would definitely, if we divide that much, it would essentially have our power as the world leader, as I said. But maybe there's a different way to look at it. Maybe you have some suggestions. Leave a comment down there and let me know what you think. So this was something a little bit interesting as well that I sort of did some looking into. This is the use of the word secession in Google Trends over the past 12 months. Look at this huge spike here that we have right around this time. 100. It goes from 19 to 100. Now that's insane. That's over the entire United States. That's the frequency that secession has been Googled recently. And South Carolina is leading the charge, evidently. There's something interesting about this too, but South Carolina leading the charge. I mean, these states, this is a high amount of usage for the word secession. Not that that means anything, that doesn't verify anything, but people are obviously looking into the idea of it a hefty amount. And check this out as well. This correlates. Look at this. This is the first state approved to secede in 1860. South Carolina. Yeah. Tell me that's not weird. Now, obviously, that's just kind of a bit of a joke, but I mean, come on, that's kind of weird that they're the ones that seceded originally first, and now they have 100 on the secession Googling. A bit odd. A bit of an oddity. Now, this news article here from Salon claims that it's a secession. Texas lost cause lawsuit was the first shot in a new civil war. That's the thing. That's a big misconception about a current day civil war. I don't think people will be shooting each other down. I mean, more than they already are. There's obviously a lot of conflict currently happening, but I don't believe that it'll be a full-on war, you know, Fort Sumter, yeah. There won't be something like that going down. I mean, maybe you'll have your different entities, your different groups of individuals who make their own societies and say, hey, we don't follow those rules around here. You know, you can take that somewhere else. And how do you combat that, honestly? When two different people have such different ideas and concepts about reality, there's nothing in between that could cohese them together. Except for alcohol, oddly enough. Think of that, let that sink in. The only thing that both sides agree on is your right to drink alcohol, so there you go, another fun fact. Think that one through. Maybe there's something else, but that's the first one that came to mind for me. That's the only thing that I could think of. But it says here the last time anything like this happened was in 1860, when the election of Abraham Lincoln led almost immediately to declarations of secession by 7 states between December 20th, 1860 and February 1st, 1861. 2 months later, on April 12th, the bombardment of Fort Sumter began the Civil War, and the Civil War was underway. So the last time that 18 states, a bunch of Congress members, House Minority Leader, like the last time something of that degree happened was right before the Civil War in 1860. And I mean, it really is something serious. There are serious ramifications for it. I'm going to read you a quote by Ulysses S. Grant here in a second, and he sort of nails it right on the head with what could be a cause of this and a reaction, and how this could actually affect the people involved. So let's read this quote. This is actually really interesting, so I recommend staying tuned. Listen up, buddy. It says, doubtless the founders of our government, the majority of them at least, regarded the Confederation of the Colonies as an experiment. Each colony considered itself a separate government, that the Confederation was for mutual protection against a foreign foe, and the prevention of strife and war among themselves. If there had been a desire on the part of any single state to withdraw from the compact at any time, while the number of states was limited to the original 13, I do not suppose there would have been any to contest the right. No matter how much the determination might have been regretted, the problem changed on the ratification of the Constitution by all the colonies. It changed still more when amendments were added, and if the right of any one state to withdraw continued to exist at all after the ratification of the Constitution, it certainly ceased on the formation of new states, at least so far as all the new states themselves were concerned. It was never possessed at all by Florida, or by the states west of the Mississippi, all of which were purchased by the treasury of the entire nation. Texas and the territory brought into the Union in consequence of annexation were purchased with both blood and treasure, and Texas, with a domain greater than that of any European state except Russia, was permitted to retain as state property all the public lands within its borders. It would have been inaugurated an injustice of the most flagrant sort for this state to withdraw from the Union after all that had been spent and done to introduce her. Yet if separation had actually occurred, Texas must necessarily have gone with the South, both on the account of her institutions and her geographical position. Secession was illogical as well as impractical. It was a revolution. And that is essentially the case. There is no secession, really, without revolution. I mean, we are bound in this contract, this constitutional agreement, that won't allow us to leave, aside from with revolution. That is the only way that this could come about, that these drastic changes could come about, because as it stated, it was paid for with blood and treasure. I mean, all of these states were, people essentially spent tons of money to get that landmass. Just for it to leave, that would sort of leave them out of pocket. It's like, well, we spent so much just to gain this ground, and now for it to leave the Union, it would sort of be leaving them with just empty pockets as they get that landmass for themselves. And so that's why secession, it's a difficult claim to make. It really is. And I mean, I'm still on the fence about it. I need to see that things are actually going to change drastically, that things are going so downhill that there really isn't another choice. And I mean, with the trajectory of how each of our entities interact right now, the left and the right, that sort of seems to be the way it's going. I don't see any way that they come back together as friends and unite under the United States of America. I don't see any way that they agree with each other so much that they become one again. So it's really difficult. I mean, we're in some crazy times. This next quote's actually pretty good too. It states, "Now the right of revolution is an inherent one. When people are oppressed by their government, it is a natural right that they enjoy to relieve themselves of the oppression. If they are strong enough, either by withdrawal from it or by overthrowing it and substituting a government more acceptable. But any people or part of a people who resort to this remedy stake their lives, their property, and every claim for protection given by citizenship on the issue. Victory or the conditions imposed by the conqueror must be the result." And those are some hefty words. That is some genius writing from Ulysses S. Grant, essentially stating that you either have to win or you will be conquered by the one oppressing you in the current moment. And how do you, I mean, that really is the case. Those are the only two outcomes that come from seceding from the Union. And it's kind of like, where do you... However, if you think into our current political sphere, people feel oppressed. I mean, they're locked in their homes. They have nowhere else to go. Their businesses are being destroyed. And there's nothing else that these people can do. Their lives are already ruined. It says to stake their lives. That's... People's lives are already at stake. Their property being destroyed. And every claim for protection given by citizenship. And that is the truth, because once you become a separate entity, you're no longer protected by any of the governmental rights that were in place before that. However, when you have governors in these states, these democratic governors making these illegal edicts that you have to follow but not them, what else do you have to lose? What else do these people have to lose besides the freedom that was already taken from them? There's nothing else at stake for them. They have nothing to lose. So I can certainly see why secession could be a possibility. I mean, we'll have to see where things go from here, but that really is a pretty crazy statement to think about, and really some knowledge to sort of ponder. Think of the different outcomes. Think of how we would work together to still be one united entity with two separate leaders, I guess. Something of that sort. I don't know. It's a difficult concept to tackle, honestly. Especially when one side feels so cheated by the other. How do they unite once more? I really don't see it happening, but I could be wrong. Let me know. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.